Who are you? That sounds like a straightforward question until you actually try to answer it, because most people define themselves by roles, responsibilities, relationships, or whatever challenge they've been wrestling with lately. You might describe yourself as a partner, a parent, a business owner, a caregiver, a responsible one, the one who holds it all together. Or you might describe yourself through your anxiety, your overwhelm, your health, your emotional eating, your shutdown, your people pleasing, or that frustrating sense that you can't seem to follow through on what really matters to you. Now, those things may describe your life, yet they don't capture who you really are. They describe your adapted self, the part of you that was shaped by your experiences and circumstances, and then learned how to function, how to belong, how to stay safe inside the life you were given. The adapted self, it's not fake and it's not the enemy. It's the version of you that learned what worked, right? It learned what got approval, what avoided conflict, what kept things stable, what made you valuable and acceptable, and what helped you make it through. Sometimes that adaptation, it looks like being responsible, productive, helpful, high functioning. Sometimes it looks like shrinking, numbing, disappearing, pleasing, performing. Either way, it's a self built around protection and survival. Now contrast that with what I call your expansive self. This is the you that becomes available when you feel safe enough to be present. It's the part of you that can access clarity, creativity, curiosity, connection, and choice. The part of you that can tell the truth, feel your feelings without being flooded by them, and make decisions that match your values rather than your fears. Your expansive self, it's not a perfect version of you, but it's the real you with access to your full range, including resilience, wisdom, and aliveness. Today, we're going to explore how to recognize the difference between these two selves, why the adapted self tends to run the show under stress, and how to start building the kind of internal safety and capacity that makes your expansive self more consistently available, because that's what creates an expansive life. Welcome to the You're Not the Problem podcast, where the conversations help you understand your nervous system, your patterns, and the adaptations that have been running your life, so you can stop turning on yourself and start standing with yourself. In this space, we tell the truth about unwanted behaviors like emotional eating, overworking, people-pleasing, self-sabotage. We talk about what it's like to live with ongoing stress and overwhelm, how that state shapes your choices, your relationships, your health, and how to step into a lighter, more grounded, deeply authentic way of living. My hope is that every time you listen, you feel less alone, more compassionate towards your patterns, and more rooted in the truth that you're not the problem, you're the possibility. In this first episode, I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to lay out 4 reasons why "who am I" can feel so hard to answer. The first 3 are about life experience and culture and the way we're shaped over time. And the 4th is about the state of your nervous system, which is the undercurrent beneath all of it. Second, I'm going to give you 3 steps to reconnect with your authentic self in a way that you can actually use, not just understand. So let's start with why it's so hard to answer the question, who am I? The first reason is that through our experiences and circumstances, we mold ourselves into who we think we need to be to gain approval and make people like us, because human beings learn early that belonging is connected to safety. When you're a kid, you're not trying to be liked for fun. You're wired to seek connection because connection means protection, support, and survival. So you start paying attention. You notice what gets praised, what gets ignored, what gets punished, and what gets rewarded. And you adapt. If being easy makes life smoother, you become easy. If being helpful gets you approval, you become helpful. If being accomplished gets you seen, you strive for accomplishment. If being quiet prevents conflict, you become quiet. These are not personality traits that just fell out of the sky. They're adaptations or protective strategies you learned because they worked. On top of your personal experiences, there's also that constant stream of messaging that we receive from the world about who we should be and what's valuable, right? It's in movie plots, billboards, it's in stories, it's on social media, in your school environments, workplace expectations, and everyday comments and overheard conversations. There are messages about what bodies should look like, what success should look like, what strength should look like, what emotions are acceptable, and what makes someone worthy of respect, what makes them lovable. People receive these messages differently, yes, but everyone receives them. And if you have ever felt pressure to be thin, to be strong, to be tough, agreeable, emotionally contained, you know exactly what I mean. We can call it culture, we can call it conditioning, we can call it pressure, but the result is the same. We learn to perform an identity that keeps us acceptable rather than inhabit an identity that's authentic. This is one of the major reasons why it's hard to answer the question, who are you? Because we might be looking for the real you while you're still living inside the version of you that was built for survival. The second reason we find it hard to name who we really are is that the hustle of life can take so much energy and attention that we lose sight of the things that make us who we are. Even people who aren't chasing hustle culture can find themselves in a life that's just simply full. Work, family, money, health, logistics, caregiving, and the daily management of just modern life takes up every spare inch of attention. And when you're busy managing responsibilities and getting through the week, it's easy to lose contact with your interests, your curiosity, your playfulness, and even your preferences. The things that bring joy and nourishment quietly fall off the list. Not because you don't care, but because you're trying to keep up. And then one day you realize you don't really know what you like anymore because you've not had the space to listen. And this is not a personal failure. This is what happens when your life is structured around output rather than aliveness. The third reason is that most of us are not encouraged to be different and unique, right? We're encouraged to be agreeable, to play nice, not rock the boat, not to take up too much space. There are families and communities that celebrate individuality, but more so there are families and communities where being different creates tension. And in those environments, we learn to keep certain truths to ourselves or even hide them from ourselves. If you learned that being too honest, too intense, too opinionated, too sensitive, too emotional, or too much created consequences, you probably adapted by shrinking certain parts of you. You might have become the peacemaker or the high achiever or the caretaker, right? You might have become the one who tries not to need anything, or the one who's bigger than life to prevent life from swallowing you, right? These are all adaptations, and they're intelligent responses to the environments we grew up in and exist in. The cost is that over time, these adaptations can become so automatic that you begin to confuse them with identity. At that point, who am I becomes almost impossible to answer because you have been negotiating with yourself for years. Now, the fourth reason is the state of your nervous system, right? So now we get to the undercurrent beneath all of it. The state of your system influences the version of yourself that you have access to in the moment. When you are stressed or overwhelmed, your survival system shifts into survival mode. Survival mode is designed for protection, not for authenticity, creativity, openness, self-reflection, none of that. In survival mode, your attention narrows. Your mind scans for problems. Your body braces, and you lose access to the part of you that's flexible, curious, expansive. And depending on your pattern, you might become hypervigilant and frantic, or you might become shut down and numb, or you might even swing between these two states. When your nervous system is settled, you come back to what I call home base. This is a state where you can think clearly, feel your feelings without getting flooded, connect with yourself and with others, and make choices that match your values. This is where your expansive self is most available. Not because life is perfect, but because your system has enough safety and room to allow for more than just protection. And this is one of the most compassionate things you can understand about yourself, because it explains why you can be the person you want to be in some moments and then feel like a completely different person in other moments. It doesn't mean you're fake. It means your system is shifting states, and your most practiced adaptations are stepping in to protect you. So the question, who am I? It's not philosophical, it's practical. When you know who you are, you have a North Star or an inner compass to steer by. You can find your way in a storm and act in ways that are in alignment with the life circumstances that you want. Now that we have named why this question is so hard, let's talk about what to do about that, okay? What are the 3 steps you can take to help you start getting back to your authentic self? The first step is to clarify your values, because values are the inner standards that you want driving your choices, even when life gets noisy, right? Values are who you want to be when you're living from choice rather than from adaptation. You can think of values as the qualities you want to embody, even when you're tired, even when you're under pressure or in conflict. Some values people often choose are integrity, honesty, compassion, courage, freedom, presence, curiosity, thoughtfulness, devotion, connection, simplicity, creativity, peace, reliability, excellence, authenticity. The list goes on and on. What are your top 5? Also, when you're doing this, try not to just list the values that you think make you look good on paper. Choose the ones that feel like you want to be. Ask yourself the question, when I feel proud of myself, what's true in that moment? Those moments of pride, they point directly at your values. And once you pick your 5, ask yourself, if my life was a movie over the last 7 days and I was watching that movie, which of these values would I say I've been living? And this is not an invitation for judgment. Values are a compass, and a compass is useful precisely when you have drifted. So now notice what happens in your body as you consider that question. Some people feel softness, other people grief, some people tightness. Whatever you notice, it's just data, because values show you what matter. And they also show you where you've been living from adaptation rather than from truth and choice. Now, the second step to engaging in more authenticity is reconnecting with what you genuinely like. Because joy and preference, these things are not trivial. They're data. And what you enjoy points you towards what nourishes your system and what brings you back up to life. So this is where many people realize they've been living a life that doesn't really include them. So I invite you to imagine an ideal day, not a fantasy day, but a day that fits your nervous system and your values. How does your morning start? Quiet, stimulation, slow, fast, structure, spaciousness. Do you want people? Do you want alone time? Do you want movement, warmth, etc.? And then ask yourself, what about your midday? What kind of work feels satisfying to you? Do you like deep focus or variety? Solving problems, being creative? Do you like collaborating or being alone? Do you like being in motion or being still? And then move into the third part of your day, that evening part. What actually restores you? Not what distracts you, not what numbs you, but what leaves you feeling like you're coming back to yourself. The next thing is I want you to write 10 sentences that start with I like. And what I want you to do this without editing, without explaining, and without justifying, right? And if your mind goes blank, that's data, right? It's what happens when your life has been loud for a long time and your system has been in survival mode, because in survival mode, everything narrows. Your attention focuses on what's urgent and necessary, which can make joy and preference feel far away. Okay, this is how these 2 exercises here is how you can start remembering yourself. And then the third step is to learn about your nervous system, because even the clearest values and the most accurate self-knowledge are hard to live when your system is stressed and overwhelmed. Most people have a default pattern, what I call nervous system signature. Some people default to high activation, right? They speed up, they push, they overthink, overwork, overcontrol, scan for what needs to happen. And then some people, like me, default to shutdown. They go numb, procrastinate, avoid, withdraw, feel foggy or stuck. Some people swing between the two. In those states, certain adaptations become more powerful. The peacemaker shows up, or the high achiever, the one who disappears, the one who fixes everything. These aren't random reactions. These are protective strategies your system learned. And if you want help identifying your pattern, take the nervous system signature quiz that's linked down below in the description of this video. It'll help you see whether you default to high activation, to shutdown, to both, and it will point you towards the kind of supports that tend to work best for that kind of system. And the goal here is not to get rid of your adaptations. It's to understand what state your system is in and what it needs so you can access choice. But first, here's a very simple check-in that you can use to kind of start to understand your system. Ask yourself, what state am I in right now? Right? Am I feeling calm and connected, or am I feeling activated? Calm and connected often feels like a slower breath, more space in the body, a mind that can take in the bigger picture. And activated feels like tightness, urgency, fast thinking, and a body that wants to move or fix something. Shut down often feels like heaviness, numbness, low energy, or a mind that feels foggy or distant. And once you can start to name your state, ask, what would bring me just 10% more safety in this moment? 10% is important because we're not trying to force a big old shift. We're looking for one small move your system can receive. For some people, that might be orienting or looking around the room and letting your eyes land on something neutral. For someone else, it might be feeling their feet flat on the floor or putting a hand on their heart, taking a slow exhale, stepping outside for 60 seconds, drinking some water, right? The right answer is the one your body responds to, even if it's subtle. Okay, so go ahead now and let's just try that, to look around the room and notice 3 simple neutral objects, right? Something with a color you can name, something that feels ordinary and familiar. And then bring your attention back to your body. Notice if there's a place where you can feel support. Maybe it's your feet on the floor, your back against the chair, your hands resting in your lap. Take a slow breath in and let your exhale be longer than your inhale. Letting your shoulders soften just a little on the exhale. And now check in. What state are you in right now? And what does your body want next? Even that tiny shift, it matters, because this is how you build safety. It's how you build capacity. And these are the things that make your values and your preferences reachable. If you want to go deeper, this is where somatic experiencing becomes a powerful next step. This is a body-based approach that helps your nervous system release stored survival energy and complete stress responses that never fully resolved, which is often why you can understand what you want, but still feel unable to follow through when life gets intense. It works gradually and intelligently by building safety and compassion, tracking your sensations within your body in tiny pieces, and teaching your system through experience that it can return to safety. This isn't about reliving your past, it's about updating your present. So your system no longer has to rely on old adaptations as if they are the only way to be safe. So here's your takeaway. The question, who am I? It's hard to answer because we're shaped by approval-seeking cultural messaging, the noise of modern life, and the pressure to be convenient rather than unique. And underneath all of it, your nervous system state determines what version of you have access to in the moment. Values help you remember what matters. Joy helps you remember what fits you. And nervous system awareness will help you access choice. If you want to identify your nervous system signature and begin understanding the adaptations that show up most often for you, take the nervous system signature quiz. That link is below. And you also want a deeper foundation, you can download the introduction to my upcoming book, You're Not the Problem, which will help you understand how your nervous system and your protective strategies formed, why they still show up even when you want something different, and what it looks like to begin shifting out of survival and in a way your system can actually absorb. The link is down below in the description of this video. If you heard something that resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Send it to somebody you know who needs to hear that they're not the problem. And I'll see you next time.